The massive chamber of the Galactic Governing Council stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian floor. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated seats, each section designed to accommodate the unique physiological needs of its occupants. The aquatic delegation floated in their water-filled spheres, while the silicon-based crystalline assembly hung from the ceiling in their mineral matrices. At the far end, the gaseous collective swirled within their containment fields, occasionally sparking with bioluminescent communication patterns. Ambassador Lyra Vasquez stood at the center of it all, her simple black diplomatic uniform stark against the alien grandeur surrounding her. She was the only human in a room full of beings who had just voted to exclude her entire species from galactic civilization. "The motion has been carried by overwhelming majority," announced Chancellor Thexmore, his 4 arms gesturing ceremoniously as his translator device rendered his words into Standard Galactic. The Hedge March was an imposing figure, standing nearly 3 meters tall with chitinous armor that had evolved over millions of years. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council and stripped of all interstellar privileges. Their violent nature and aggressive tendencies pose too great a risk to civilized space." Lyra felt the weight of 47 alien gazes upon her. Some showed what might have been pity, others displayed satisfaction, but most were simply indifferent. To them, humans were just another failed experiment in galactic integration. "With respect, Chancellor," Lyra said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic design, "I request the right to address the Council before this decision becomes final." A ripple of what sounded like laughter emanated from the gaseous collective. The aquatic delegation spokesperson, a creature resembling a luminescent jellyfish, pulsed with dismissive colors. "The decision is already final, human," Chancellor Thexmore replied. "Your species has had 50 standard years to prove your worth to galactic society. Instead, you have shown nothing but aggression, territorial disputes, and an alarming tendency toward violence, even among your own kind." Lyra's jaw tightened. She had heard these accusations countless times over the past decade as humanity's standing in the galactic community steadily declined. Every human conflict, every disagreement between Earth's nations, every military action was scrutinized and used as evidence of their species' inherent savagery. "If I may remind the Council," she began, "humanity has contributed significantly to galactic science, medicine, and culture. Our researchers developed the quantum healing matrix that has saved millions of lives across dozens of species. Our artists have created works that are celebrated on worlds we've never even visited. Your contributions do not outweigh your fundamental nature," interrupted Representative Zorvok of the Militant Purity Alliance. The insectoid being's mandibles clicked rhythmically as he spoke. "You wage war against your own kind over resources, territory, ideology. You cannot even achieve unity among yourselves, yet you expect us to trust you among the stars." The chamber erupted in a chorus of agreement from various species. Lyra waited for the noise to subside, her hands clasped behind her back in a display of patience that masked her growing frustration. "Furthermore," continued Chancellor Thexmore, "recent intelligence reports indicate that several human factions are developing weapons of mass destruction specifically designed to be effective against non-human biology. This presents an unacceptable threat to galactic peace." Lyra's eyes widened. This was news to her, and she could see from the Chancellor's expression that her surprise was genuine and damning. "I was not briefed on any such intelligence," she said carefully. "Because your own government does not trust you with sensitive information," sneered Representative Kelthara of the Psionic Conclave. The ethereal being's form shimmered as telepathic energy radiated from her crystalline body. "We have read the thoughts of your military leaders, human. They see us not as allies, but as potential enemies to be studied and countered." The revelation hit Lyra like a physical blow. She realized that her own species' governments had been keeping secrets from their diplomatic corps, undermining years of careful relationship building with suspicious military preparations. The evidence is overwhelming, Chancellor Thexmore declared. Humanity's aggressive instincts, their inability to achieve internal peace, and their preparation for interspecies conflict make them unsuitable for continued membership in civilized galactic society. What exactly does expulsion entail? Lyra asked, though she dreaded the answer. All human settlements outside the Sol system will be evacuated within 1 standard year, the Chancellor replied. All human vessels will be prohibited from entering Council space. All trade agreements with human entities are hereby nullified. Humanity will be quarantined to their home system until such time as they can demonstrate fundamental changes to their nature. The word quarantine sent a chill through Lyra's spine. She knew what that meant in practical terms. Humanity had colonies on 17 worlds, research stations throughout Council space, and trade relationships that formed the backbone of Earth's interstellar economy. Cutting all of that off would be catastrophic. And if humanity refuses to comply with these restrictions, she asked. The chamber fell silent. Even the gaseous collective's constant swirling motion seemed to pause. Then, the combined fleets of the Galactic Council will enforce compliance, Chancellor Thexmore said quietly. We hope it will not come to that. Lyra looked around the chamber one more time, searching for any sign of support or sympathy. The Empathic Federation's representative, a species known for their emotional sensitivity, looked away when her eyes met theirs. The Trade Consortium's delegates were already discussing the redistribution of human-held shipping contracts. Even a normally neutral scientific assembly seemed resigned to the decision. How long do I have to deliver this message to Earth? She asked. Your diplomatic vessel will be escorted to the Sol system boundary immediately, the Chancellor replied. Consider this a mercy. Many council members voted to simply revoke your safe passage entirely. As Lyra began the long walk toward the chamber's exit, the conversations resumed around her. Already, the various species were discussing how to divide up the resources and territories that humanity would be forced to abandon. She caught fragments of discussions about mining rights, research data, and the human problem, as if her species were nothing more than a logistical challenge to be resolved. At the chamber's massive doors, she turned back for one final look. The sight of 47 alien civilizations casually dismissing humanity's place in the galaxy filled her with a mixture of sadness and anger that she struggled to contain. Ambassador, called a voice behind her. Lyra turned to see Ambassador Nexhal of the synthetic collective approaching. The artificial being's metallic form moved with fluid grace, its optical sensors focusing on her with what might have been sympathy. This decision troubles us, Nexhal said in its synthesized voice. The collective voted for expulsion, but not unanimously. Some among us believe this action is premature. Then, why didn't you speak against it? Lyra asked. Because we also have access to the intelligence reports, Nexhal replied. Your military leaders are indeed preparing for conflict with non-human entities. The evidence is compelling. Lyra felt a surge of anger at her own species' leadership. Their paranoia and military preparations had undermined decades of diplomatic work. However, Nexhal continued, we also have access to other data, patterns that the organic members of the Council may have missed or chosen to ignore. What kind of patterns? Human behavioral data from your colonies and research stations. When humans are placed in integrated environments with other species, their aggression levels drop significantly. Your conflict patterns are largely intraspecies, not interspecies. This suggests that the problem may be environmental rather than fundamental to your nature. This was the first hopeful thing Lyra had heard all day, but she didn't dare to feel optimistic yet. Will the collective share this data with the Council? We attempted to present it during the preliminary hearings, Nexhal replied. It was dismissed as irrelevant. The organic species seemed determined to view humanity through the lens of their own evolutionary experiences with aggressive species. As Lyra processed this information, she began to understand the deeper currents at play. The Council wasn't just concerned about human aggression, They were projecting their own species' evolutionary histories onto humanity. "There is something else you should know," Nexhal added, lowering its voice to barely audible levels. "The intelligence about human weapons development, it is accurate, but it is also incomplete." "What do you mean?" "The military preparations your species is undertaking are defensive in nature, not offensive. Your leaders have detected something that the Council has either missed or chosen to ignore. There are entities moving in dark space, beyond the Council's sensor networks. Your species may be preparing for a threat that none of us have recognized." Before Lyra could ask more questions, Nexhal's optical sensors flashed a warning pattern. "I must return to my delegation. Safe travels, Ambassador, and prepare your species for what is coming. The expulsion may prove to be fortuitous in ways none of us anticipate." With that cryptic warning, the synthetic being glided away, leaving Lyra alone with her thoughts and the weight of humanity's galactic exile. As she made her way to the diplomatic docking bay where her ship waited, Lyra's mind raced with questions. What had humanity's military detected that the Council had missed? Why were some species so eager to expel humans while others seemed reluctant? And, most importantly, how would her species survive the economic and social catastrophe of galactic quarantine? Her ship, the UES Messenger, was a sleek vessel designed for diplomatic missions rather than combat. Its crew of 12 humans had been waiting nervously for word of the Council's decision. As Lyra approached the airlock, she could see their faces through the viewport, hopeful, anxious, trusting that their ambassador had somehow found a way to prevent disaster. She paused at the threshold, knowing that once she boarded and delivered her report, there would be no turning back. Humanity's time as a member of galactic civilization was over. Whatever came next would depend entirely on how well her species could adapt to isolation and whatever threats might be lurking in the darkness beyond Council space. Taking a deep breath, Lyra stepped through the airlock and sealed humanity's fate behind her. The ship's engines hummed to life as they began the long journey back to Sol System, carrying news that would change the course of human history forever. As the messenger pulled away from the Council station, Lyra watched through the observation deck as the massive structure shrank into the distance. Somewhere on that station, 47 alien species were already moving forward with their plans for a galaxy without humanity. They would soon discover that expelling humans from their civilized space might have been the biggest mistake in galactic history. 6 months had passed since the expulsion order, and the Sol System had become a hive of frantic activity unlike anything in human history. Every available ship was being pressed into service to evacuate the 17 human colonies before the deadline. The sight of massive refugee convoys streaming back toward Earth painted a grim picture of humanity's fall from galactic grace. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the latest convoy of colonist ships dock at Luna Station. Each vessel carried families who had spent generations building lives on distant worlds, now forced to abandon everything they had worked for because of political decisions made by species they had never met. "Admiral, incoming priority transmission from Earth Command," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from the communication station. "Put it through," Chin replied, not taking her eyes off the refugee ships. President Elena Vasquez appeared on the main screen, her face showing the strain of the past 6 months. The irony that she shared a surname with the expelled ambassador was not lost on anyone. Humanity's diplomatic failures had come full circle to the highest levels of government. "Admiral Chun, I need a status report on the colony evacuations," the president said without preamble. "We're on schedule to complete the evacuation with 2 weeks to spare," Chin reported. "However, we're facing serious logistical challenges. Food production, housing, employment. We simply don't have the infrastructure on Earth to absorb 15 million colonists. I understand the challenges, Admiral, but we have bigger problems." President Vasquez leaned forward, her expression grave. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected movement in the void sector. Large-scale movement." Admiral Chun felt her blood run cold. The Void Sector was a region of space beyond the galactic rim where no known species had ever established permanent settlements. It was called the Void not because it was empty, but because anything that went there simply disappeared. How large-scale are we talking about, Madam President? Our best estimates suggest a fleet numbering in the thousands, possibly tens of thousands. Unknown configuration, unknown intentions, but they're moving toward Council space at significant velocity. The implications hit Chun immediately. And the Council doesn't know? Our attempts to warn them have been unsuccessful. Apparently, information from expelled species is considered unreliable by default. They've dismissed our reports as fabrications designed to regain Council membership through fear-mongering. Chun cursed under her breath. Humanity's reputation for aggression had backfired in the worst possible way. Now, when they had legitimate intelligence about a potential threat, no one would listen. What are your orders, Madam President? Continue the evacuation as planned, but I'm also authorizing full mobilization of the Solar Defense Force. If the Council won't listen to our warnings, we need to be prepared to face whatever's coming on our own. The transmission ended, leaving Chun staring at the tactical display that showed the Sol System's defenses. On paper, humanity had a respectable fleet, 300 active warships of various classes, plus orbital defense platforms around Earth, Mars, and the major colonies. In reality, they had never been tested against anything more dangerous than pirates and the occasional rogue asteroid. Commander Therese, Chun called out. Give me Admiral Reyes at Mars Command and Admiral Park at the Asteroid Belt Defense Grid. Full tactical conference in 30 minutes. As her crew prepared for the conference, Chun found herself thinking about the events that had led to this moment. The intelligence reports that the Council had mentioned during the expulsion hearing were real, but they told only part of the story. Humanity's military leaders had indeed been preparing for potential conflict with alien species, but not because they wanted war, because their deep space sensors had been detecting anomalies for years. The conference began with grim efficiency. Admiral Reyes, commanding the Mars Defense Fleet, appeared first on screen. His weathered face and cybernetic eye replacement were reminders of his service during the asteroid mining conflicts of the previous decade. Admiral Park joined moments later from her command station in the belt, her expression as serious as Chun had ever seen it. Let's dispense with pleasantries, Chun began. I'm sure you've both received the intelligence briefing about the Void Sector contacts. What's your assessment of our defensive capabilities? Admiral Reyes was the first to respond. Our fleet is designed for police actions and system defense, not large-scale warfare against an unknown enemy with superior numbers. We have good ships and well-trained crews, but we're looking at potentially overwhelming odds. The Belt Defense Grid can provide significant fire support, Admiral Park added, but our fixed positions make us vulnerable to coordinated assault. If they have technology we don't understand, we could be in serious trouble. Chun nodded grimly. What about the new weapons systems that got us expelled in the first place? Are they operational? The biodisruption torpedoes are ready for deployment, Reyes confirmed. Nasty pieces of work designed to target non-human biological systems. The irony is that we developed them based on intelligence about potential threats from the Void Sector, and the Council used their existence as evidence of our aggressive intentions. The kinetic bombardment platforms are also online, Park reported. Railgun technology adapted for ship-to-ship combat, devastating against known defensive systems, but we have no idea how they'll perform against unknown technology. As the three admirals discussed tactical options, Chun felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Humanity had been cast out of galactic civilization just as they faced their greatest challenge. They would have to stand alone against whatever was emerging from the cosmic darkness. There's something else we need to consider, Chun said after a pause. Our long-range sensors are more advanced than anything the Council species possess. We've been tracking these contacts for months while they've remained completely unaware. That suggests either our technology is superior in this area, or or the incoming threat has some way of masking their presence from Council sensors while remaining visible to ours, Reyes finished, which would imply they've specifically studied Council technology. The implications of that possibility hung heavy in the virtual conference room. If the unknown fleet had been observing and studying the galactic community while remaining hidden, it suggested a level of technological sophistication and strategic planning that was deeply concerning. Admiral Chun, came a voice from off-screen. Priority transmission from the Outer System Monitoring Station. Put it through, Chin ordered. Commander Lisa Park, Admiral Park's daughter, and a specialist in deep space reconnaissance, appeared on a smaller screen. Her usual calm demeanor was notably absent. Admirals, we've got a significant development. The unknown fleet has changed course and acceleration. They're no longer heading for the General Council space. They're making directly for the Hedgemarch home system. The three senior officers exchanged glances. The Hedgemarch system was the political center of the Galactic Council, home to Chancellor Thexmore and the primary Council fleet. How long until they reach the system? Admiral Park asked her daughter. At their current velocity, approximately 72 hours. But there's more. We're detecting energy signatures consistent with faster-than-light communication arrays. They're coordinating their approach with something. Admiral Chun felt pieces of a larger puzzle starting to fall into place. Commander, are these communications directed toward the Hedgemarch system? No, Admiral. The signals are being transmitted toward 3 other locations in Council space. It looks like a coordinated multi-front operation. The silence that followed was deafening. Whatever was coming from the void wasn't just a single fleet. It was a coordinated invasion force targeting multiple Council worlds simultaneously. We have to try to warn them again, Admiral Reyes said finally. They won't listen, Chen replied. But we can't just sit here and watch galactic civilization get overrun because of political pride. What are you thinking, Sarah? Admiral Park asked, using Chen's first name for the first time in years. I'm thinking that human ships are small and fast compared to Council vessels. We might be able to get close enough to the action to provide intelligence, maybe even limited support, without getting ourselves destroyed in the process. You're talking about violating the expulsion order, Reyes pointed out. If we enter Council space, they'll consider it an act of war. If we don't, there might not be a Council left to consider anything, Chun countered. Besides, what are they going to do? Expel us twice. The debate that followed was intense, but brief. In the end, all 3 admirals agreed that the threat to galactic civilization outweighed the political risks of defying the expulsion order. I'll take a fast strike group toward the Hedgemarch system, Chen decided. Reyes, you maintain defensive positions around Mars and Earth. Park, the belt defense grid stays operational, but prepare to redeploy assets if needed. What about the evacuation? Admiral Park asked. Continue as planned. If we can prevent or minimize the damage to the Council, maybe we can negotiate our way back into galactic society. If not, we'll need every human home safely in Sol System. As the conference ended, Chen began selecting ships for her strike group. Fast destroyers, reconnaissance cruisers, and a few of the new stealth frigates that had been developed during the final years of Council membership. Not enough firepower to make a significant difference in a large-scale battle, but enough to gather intelligence and perhaps provide crucial support at a critical moment. The irony of the situation was not lost on her. Humanity had been expelled from the galactic community for being too aggressive and militaristic. Now, that same aggressive military tradition might be the only thing standing between galactic civilization and destruction. 12 hours later, the U.S. Defiance led a small fleet of 18 ships out of the Sol System's gravitational well. They were heading into unknown danger, violating interstellar law, and risking everything on the chance that they could make a difference. As Earth faded into the distance behind them, Admiral Chen looked at her assembled fleet through the tactical display. These ships represented humanity's finest military technology and most experienced crews. They were also all volunteers, Every captain and crew member had chosen to risk their lives for a galactic civilization that had rejected them. Communications, open a channel to the fleet, Chun ordered. Channel open, Admiral. This is Admiral Chun to all ships. We're heading into a situation where we don't know the enemy, don't know their capabilities, and aren't even sure our own side will recognize us as allies. What we do know is that billions of lives across dozens of species may depend on our actions in the next few days. She paused, looking at the faces of her bridge crew, all volunteers, all committed to the mission despite the risks. We were cast out of galactic society because they thought we were too dangerous. Let's show them that sometimes dangerous is exactly what you need. The fleet accelerated toward the edge of human space, carrying with it the hopes of their expelled species and the future of galactic civilization. Behind them, the rest of humanity waited in their quarantine system, unaware that their fate and the fate of the entire galaxy might soon be decided in the darkness between the stars. #Humanity left in silence, and the governing council was shamed the Hedgemarch home system was burning. Admiral Chin watched through the tactical display as the impossible unfolded before her eyes. The proud council fleet, 3 times the size of humanity's entire military, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to exist in defiance of every known law of physics and warfare. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the enemy vessels, reported Lieutenant Torres. Their shields appear to be absorbing and redirecting our sensor probes. I can barely get basic mass readings. The enemy ships were unlike anything in Council databases. Sleek, organic-looking vessels that moved with fluid grace through space, their surfaces rippling with patterns of light that seemed almost alive. They had emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, immediately engaging the surprised Council forces with weapons that defied classification. How many enemy vessels are we looking at? Chen asked. Conservative estimate? 800 in this system alone. And, Admiral, Torres paused, checking her readings again. They're not using any technology we recognize. No plasma cannons, no kinetic weapons, no gravitic torpedoes. Their attack patterns suggest some form of directed energy manipulation on a scale we've never seen. Through the chaos of battle, Chun could see the Council fleet's formations dissolving under the relentless assault. Massive Hedgemarch dreadnoughts, each one larger than 10 human cruisers combined, were being systematically disabled by much smaller enemy vessels. The aliens' tactics were precise, surgical. They weren't trying to destroy the Council ships, but to capture them intact. They're taking prisoners, realized Commander Williams, the Defiance's tactical officer. Look at the engagement patterns. They disable the ships, then deploy some kind of boarding craft. Chin studied the tactical display more carefully. Williams was right. The enemy would overwhelm a Council vessel's defenses, then attach strange, pod-like devices to the hull. Within minutes, the ship would go dark, its crew apparently subdued or captured. Admiral, incoming transmission on emergency frequencies, Torres announced. It's from Chancellor Thexmore's flagship. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of the Hedgemarch command vessel. Emergency lighting cast everything in harsh red shadows, and the sound of explosions echoed through the transmission. Chancellor Thexmore appeared on screen, his usually pristine chitinous armor cracked and smoking. This is Chancellor Thexmore to any Council forces in the system, he broadcast. We are under attack by an unknown enemy of overwhelming technological superiority. All Council vessels, retreat to designated rally points, and the transmission cut off as a brilliant flash of light filled the screen. When it cleared, the Chancellor's flagship was dark, surrounded by the organic-looking enemy vessels. Jesus, whispered Commander Williams. They just took out the entire Council command structure. Admiral Chun felt the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. The most powerful military force in known space had been neutralized in less than 3 hours. The carefully maintained balance of galactic civilization was collapsing in real time. Admiral, came a voice from the communication station. We're receiving multiple distress signals from across Council space. Similar attacks are being reported at the Psionic Conclave homeworld, the Aquatic Federation capital, and the Trade Consortium headquarters. The scope of the coordinated assault was staggering. Someone had been watching the galactic community for a very long time, learning their weaknesses, studying their technology, and planning this moment with meticulous precision. Any word from our intelligence assets? Chen asked. Commander Park reports similar invasions at 17 different Council worlds. They estimate total enemy force strength at somewhere between 10 and 15,000 vessels. The numbers were overwhelming. Even if humanity had still been part of the Council, their combined fleets would have been hopelessly outnumbered. Admiral, Torres called out urgently. 3 enemy vessels are breaking off from the main fleet. They're heading directly for us. Chun felt her pulse quicken. The human ships had been maintaining position at the edge of the system, using their superior sensor technology to observe the battle while remaining undetected. Apparently, their stealth had not been as effective as hoped. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Prepare for combat. The enemy vessels approached with the same fluid grace they had displayed throughout the battle. As they drew closer, Chun could see details that made her skin crawl. The ship's surfaces weren't just organic-looking. They were actually organic. Living tissue stretched over some kind of internal framework, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to respond to their environment. Incoming transmission from the lead enemy vessel, Torres reported, her voice tight with tension. They're trying to communicate? Chen asked, surprised. It appears so. Should I put it through? Chen hesitated for only a moment. Do it. The screen filled with an image that would haunt Chen's dreams for years to come. The being on screen was clearly intelligent, but utterly alien. Its form was constantly shifting, as if its flesh existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Where its face should have been, geometric patterns of light pulsed in complex mathematical sequences. Humans, it said in perfect English, though the voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You are not part of the Council Collective. Why do you observe our harvest? The word harvest sent chills through everyone on the bridge. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Forces, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. We're here as neutral observers. The entity's form shifted, and Chun had the unsettling sensation that it was examining her on multiple levels simultaneously. Curious, it said. The Council records indicate that your species was expelled from their civilization 6 of your months ago. Classification: overly aggressive, unsuitable for galactic society. That's correct, Chen confirmed, wondering where this conversation was heading. Yet you risk yourselves to observe the fate of those who rejected you. This behavior pattern does not match Council assessments of human psychology. Chen found herself in the surreal position of defending humanity to an entity that was currently conquering galactic civilization. The Council made their decision based on incomplete information, she said. We're not as aggressive as they believed. Indeed, the entity replied. Our analysis indicates that human aggression is primarily defensive in nature, triggered by perceived threats to your social groups. The Council species failed to recognize this distinction. The casual way the alien discussed human psychology while its fleet systematically dismantled the galactic order was deeply disturbing. What do you want with the Council species? Chen asked. They have achieved a level of technological and social development that makes them suitable for integration into our collective. Their knowledge and biological diversity will strengthen our civilization. Integration by force is called conquest, Chen pointed out. The entity's form rippled with what might have been amusement. Your species uses similar methods when incorporating new territories and populations. The difference is one of scale, not principle. Chun felt a surge of anger, but forced herself to remain diplomatic. What about humanity? Are we also targets for integration? Your species presents a unique situation. You possess certain qualities that the Council species lack, but you also exhibit traits that make integration problematic. What kind of traits? Adaptive aggression. When faced with existential threats, humans demonstrate remarkable tactical flexibility and willingness to accept casualties in pursuit of strategic objectives. The Council species, despite their technological advantages, lack this psychological resilience. Shin realized with growing horror that the aliens have been studying not just galactic technology, but galactic psychology. They understood the weaknesses of each species with clinical precision. The Council species have become complacent through centuries of peace and cooperation, the entity continued. They lack the warrior instincts necessary for long-term survival in a hostile universe. Your species, however, has maintained these instincts despite achieving technological sophistication. So, are you going to leave us alone? Chen asked, hardly daring to hope. That remains to be determined. Your expulsion from Council space has created an interesting experimental situation. You will remain isolated in your home system while we evaluate your long-term potential. The implications were staggering. Humanity was going to be quarantined not by the Council, but by their conquerors, kept as a reserve population while the rest of galactic civilization was absorbed into some alien collective. What if we refused to comply? Chen asked. The entity's form stabilized into something resembling a predatory smile. Your military leaders have already demonstrated remarkable foresight in developing weapons specifically designed for use against non-human biology. We are curious to see how effectively you would employ them in your own defense. Chun felt the blood drain from her face. The biodisruption weapons that had led to humanity's expulsion were apparently common knowledge to these aliens. However, the entity continued. We hope such measures will prove unnecessary. Your species shows promise. With proper guidance, humans might eventually prove worthy of true partnership rather than simple integration. The transmission ended, leaving Chun staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew sat in stunned silence. Orders, Admiral? Commander Williams asked quietly. Chun looked at the tactical display, which showed the 3 alien vessels maintaining position near the human fleet. In the distance, the last of the Council resistance was being systematically eliminated. Signal the fleet to withdraw to minimum safe distance, she ordered. Continuous monitoring of enemy activities, but no hostile actions unless directly threatened. As the human ships pulled back, Chun watched the alien harvest continue. Council vessels that had taken decades to build were being processed and absorbed into the alien fleet with terrifying efficiency. Entire civilizations were being reduced to raw materials for an incomprehensible alien purpose. Admiral, Torres reported, we're receiving emergency transmissions from 17 different Council worlds. All report successful enemy invasions and integration of local populations. Chin closed her eyes, trying to process the magnitude of what she was witnessing. In less than 12 hours, the galactic civilization that had existed for thousands of years had been completely destroyed and absorbed. There's something else. Admiral, Torres continued hesitantly. We're detecting massive construction activity in the outer void regions. Whatever these aliens are building, it's enormous. Preliminary estimates suggest structures larger than entire star systems. Chen opened her eyes and looked at her crew. They were all thinking the same thing. Humanity had just become the sole surviving independent civilization in known space. Everything they had built, everything they had dreamed of achieving among the stars, now rested on their ability to remain free from alien control. Send a message to Earth Command, she ordered. Priority Alpha classification. The galactic situation has changed dramatically. Recommend immediate implementation of total system defense protocols. As the message flashed toward Earth, Chun continued watching the alien harvest. In the distance, she could see the beginnings of what appeared to be a massive construction project using materials from the destroyed Council fleet. Ma'am, Williams said quietly, what do we do now? Chun looked at the tactical display, showing the positions of her small fleet against the vast alien armada. Now we go home and prepare for the possibility that we're the last free humans in the galaxy. The journey back to Sol System took 3 days. During that time, reports continued to pour in from the outer monitoring stations. Every major council world had been successfully invaded and occupied. The great galactic civilization that had expelled humanity for being too aggressive had fallen without achieving a single significant victory against their conquerors. When the human fleet finally arrived at Earth, they found a system transformed. The orbital defense platforms had been expanded and reinforced. New weapon arrays based on anti-alien technology dotted the approaches to every inhabited world. The asteroid belt had been converted into a vast early warning network. Most importantly, the 15 million refugees from the human colonies had been successfully integrated into Earth's population. The species that the Council had claimed was too divided and aggressive to deserve galactic membership had accomplished in 6 months what many civilizations took decades to achieve. Admiral Chun stood in the briefing room at Luna Command, addressing the Joint Chiefs of Staff and political leadership of humanity's government. Through the viewport, she could see Earth hanging in space, beautiful, defiant, and utterly alone. The galactic situation is now clear, she concluded her report. We are the only remaining independent human civilization. Everything we do from this point forward will determine whether our species survives as free beings or becomes part of an alien collective. President Vasquez leaned forward. What are our chances if they decide to invade the Sol system? Unknown, Chim replied honestly. Our technology is different from theirs, and our psychological profile apparently gives us advantages the Council species lacked. But we're still vastly outnumbered. Then, we'd better make sure they never regret leaving us free, said General Rodriguez, the head of Solar Defense Command. Because if they ever decide we're a threat, we need to be dangerous enough to make them pay for that decision. Shin nodded. The Council expelled us for being too aggressive. Now our survival may depend on proving that they were absolutely right. Through the viewport, Earth continued its ancient rotation, carrying the hopes and fears of humanity's future. In the darkness beyond, alien intelligences were building something unimaginable with the remains of galactic civilization. But for now, humanity endured, quarantined, isolated, and free.